Hello everyone, thank you for joining us for Dinosaur Bone Anatomy. So this is going to help you in identification of bones out in the field. So we're going to be looking at skeletal drawings for these different types of dinosaurs. We have sauropods, theropods, thyreophorans, and ornithopods. If you don't know what all of these are, pay attention to the look of the bones. You'll get it here pretty easily. Want to use the technical terms so that you guys are familiar with them, and we'll have some names to go along with it. All right, so we're going to particularly focus on certain bones. I'll name them out as you see them, but please put drawings of these in notes, because the more you look at them, the more you'll be able to identify them in the field. If you have questions on any of these things, feel free to call a member of the crew over. We'll be happy to come take a look at it. There are specifically some bones we want to know about right away, and you'll find out what those are within this presentation. So let's move on to sauropods. So these are the big, long-necked dinosaurs that we're going to find in the quarry. We have at least two of them. So let's look firstly at the vertebrae. All right. So this is going to be a cervical vertebrae, and this is going to be a thoracic vertebrae. And then we can look at some of these that are tailbones, the caudal vertebrae. So look at the overall shape of vertebrae. More or less, as a vertebrae is a vertebrae, you're going to see this same kind of shape overall. If you got those vertebrae, be kind of careful with them. If it's a sauropod, it's going to be big. Even the neck vertebrae are going to be pretty significant. So they're going to be pretty easy to find. Most of the bones that we're going to be looking for are black in the Jurassic as well. So the black is a nice color to continue to look at and keep in mind against the gray matrix that we're going to be getting things out of. All right, now let's move down a little. This is your shoulder bone, the scapula. And that's the front of the scapula, the coracoid, and then of course we have our humerus, radius, ulna, carpals, metacarpals, and phalanges. So keep a look on those. And nice big flat bone here for the scapula. Humerus is going to be really bulky. Again, these are sauropods, so they're going to be big bones. Nice long bones that we can work at. Also pay attention on these for the ribs. They're going to be big, long, flat bones. Understand that ribs can break pretty easily, and let us know when you find one. We'll have you kind of follow it until we get to the end of it. Most likely, because we're dealing with a bone bed, you're going to find more bones around it, but we can deal with that and instruct you on how to deal with that as we come across it. So let's move on to the back end of the sauropod here. We'll look at the femur, the tibia, and the fibula, and then we have our metatarsals, tarsals, and phalanges as well. Now let's get to the more diagnostic bones: the pelvis, the ilium, the ischium, and the pubis. I'll say it a few times. You find any sort of pelvic bone, inform one of the crew immediately, because we want to be there to instruct you on extraction or anything like that, because these are very important bones. They're diagnostic in figuring out what we've got. If you should find a skull for a sauropod, that would be fantastic. Again, keep looking over these, and that's sauropod bones. We'll move on to the next animal here in just a second. So here's your thyreophoran, a stegosaurus, armored dinosaurs. The other ones are the ankylosaurs. So again, looking at the bones, look at the ribs. We have our scapula, our humerus, radius, ulna, and as before, notice the difference here, though, in the pelvic bones, because we're dealing with an ornithischian and not a saurischian, which we had in the previous one. So your ilium, again, you're going to see some similarities, but your ischium and your pubis are going to be a little different. So the ilium faces backward. In this case, the pubis also faces backward, which is one of the main differences between ornithischians and saurischians. Also going to look for some of these big plates as well. If you find one of those, call us over. But again, we're worried about this pelvic bone. Again, any skull material would be fantastic. You'll see these open ends here, the fenestrae right here. If you find any of the fenestrae, big clue to call us over, and we'll be happy to work on extraction alongside with you guys. So again, similarities with the long bones that we see here, a little bit of difference within the pelvis. Spikes would be a cool thing to find. Keep that in mind for our stegosaur that we are pretty sure we've got as well. We'll move on to the next one. This is an ornithopod, Camptosaurus. So here's a good close-up of that different looking pelvis. All right. We've got our ilium here, our ischium here, and our pubis here, again facing backwards. These are different types of Camptosaur species that they're looking at. So notice the big hole here. This is for the femur to fit into, so this is the hip socket. Keep that in mind. Good thing to put in a sketchbook. Even if it's a crude drawing, you have the idea. It'll help you remember it as well. Here's the rest of the skeleton for Camptosaurus from varying viewpoints. Here's your femur, tibia, fibula, and the carpals, metacarpals, tarsals, metatarsals, and phalanges. Here's your scapula, your coracoid, your humerus, radius, ulna, and your digits here. There's a big, nice piece of skull material. Again, the ribs are going to be nice and flat and long, and we have our vertebrae. Again, you're seeing similarities with the vertebrae, caudal vertebrae as well. Here's one of our theropods that we've got here. Finding skull material would always be fantastic. Look at the nice vertebrae that we have here. See the similarities that we have with the other animals. Here's our ilium, our ischium, and our pubic bone. This one again is facing forward because this is a saurischian. We have our femur, tibia, fibula, tarsals, metatarsals, phalanges here. We've got our scapula, coracoid, humerus, radius, ulna, and our tarsals, metatarsals, and phalanges. Nice big flat ribs here as well. And again, the different vertebrae, as you see. Skull material, always nice to find, but we're primarily concerned with making sure you guys know the limb bones and especially the pelvis. Finding skull material, you'll call us over right away. We'll look at a smaller theropod here next. Again, you'll see some similarities. That pubis facing forward, the ischium, there's the ilium on our pelvic bone. Skull material here. Again, vertebrae, you'll still find similarities between all of these with our vertebrae. If you're looking for these are gastrella, these are the underribs. Scapula's gotten a little smaller. Coracoids, humerus, radius, ulna. We have some reduced carpals, metacarpals, and then our phalanges are really big. Your femur, tib, fib. This is a good running animal. These are also very rare, so again, keep that in mind. Things to remember for all of this. Get those general shapes of the bones down. Simple drawings along with the names. Put them in there. You'll be quizzed on these later. So remember the differences in the bones. It's going to help you in field identification. The more you can identify in the field, the better off you're going to be. And you'll see it bold and underlined. If you find pelvic or skull elements in the field, call one of the crew over immediately. We don't want any of this stuff damaged. This is because it has been damaged by mistake in the past. This is something we want to know about right away. We will all cheer loudly when you find it. The reason is these tend to be very diagnostic. They're important. We don't want any more excavation. If you found one, we'll make a decision from there on who's going to work on it, and we're going to cheer and make sure you get an extra portion at dinner or whatever we need to do. But we need to know about that right away so we can properly extract it and figure out what we need to do from there. And you'll see that this is all bold and underlined, so very important to remember. So there's your bone tutorial, and we'll see you in the next video.